Good morning, everybody. My name is Alexander, and this is the first in a series of tutorials based on the Adobe CS4 Master Collection. Today's tutorial is Photoshop Basics. So we're gonna get started in just a sec, but first I wanted to talk about a couple little things. As you can see, I'm using a Mac, but all these tutorials are going to be universally based. So if you're using Windows or maybe even Linux, you can still use these tutorials. The only differences are, if I say the Command key, that means the Control key. If I say the Option key, that means the Alt key. That's pretty much it. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Okay, to get started, open up Adobe Photoshop. Now for the purpose of this tutorial, you can use whatever image or file or document you want to try to access and modify. The shortcut for opening something is press Command O. The shortcut for opening a new window is Command N. If you're impatient like me, shortcuts are invaluable. Okay, continuing. To start with, we always want to, no matter what, duplicate your background layer for a couple of reasons. First of all, your background layer is always going to be locked, which means you can't really do much to it. Right-click and press Duplicate Layer, and there you go. Now the other reason is because you want to keep your background layer perfectly intact the same way it was when you started. The reason for this is so if you mess up something later, you can return to this reference and use what's called your history. Now I'll explain that more in depth later, but for now, just leave it as it may. Okay, make sure your background layer is invisible and click on your new layer that you just created, Background Copy. Alright, first off, the selection tool, which is called Move Tool, shortcut the letter V, all it does is move whatever you have selected. Just moves it around. If you don't have anything selected, it moves your entire image. The next, this tool right here is called the Marquee tool. Shortcut, the letter M. Now all this does, as you can see, there's 4 different variables: rectangular, elliptical, single row, and single column. Single row and single column are the difference between horizontal and vertical, whereas rectangular and elliptical are obviously circular and square. Now, if we use the elliptical, because I'm using a picture of the Earth, so it is obviously a circle, then you just drag and drop, and now you press V to move back to your Move tool, and you'll see all it does is move around what I have selected. Okay? The next selection tool is our Lasso tool. Shortcut for the Lasso tool? You guessed it, the letter L. Okay, 3 different types: lasso, polygonal, and magnetic. The original lasso tool, you just click, drag, and as long as you attach it to the original end, you're done. Again, always press V and you move around what you've selected. The next type is the polygonal. Now this is a much more sharp-edged tool. You press once and then you drag, 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 and basically you're just getting a rough image, so you're knocking out a lot of the background, but that's pretty much all it's going to do. Then you're going to have to refine it. So, it may not be the best choice, but sometimes it can be useful. Okay, now, whoops, sorry about that. Now we're going to use the magnetic lasso tool. Now all this does is it looks on, I'm going to draw a straight line, and it's going to look on both sides of the line, the left side and the right side, and it's going to say the left side of this image is black, the right side is a light blue. As long as the color, the hexadecimal value of the color on both sides of the line are high enough in contrast to each other, so they're different enough, it will easily capture what we're trying to draw. As you can see, it's following the line of the Earth. That's because, like I said, the left side is a very, very dark black, whereas the right side is a light blue. That's pretty much all it does. Okay? Pressing enter obviously, is the very, very quick way to close off the line without having to draw it all the way back up there. The next tool we're going to use is the Magic Wand tool, which is pretty useful if you just want to isolate something real quick, like I said, if it's a high contrast image, because it basically operates on the same principle, looking for high contrast variables within your image document, archive, whatever you're using. So if I click once, it'll capture all the black until it touches some other color. Now, a quick way to isolate this image is to invert the black to what is the natural opposite of black? White. To invert an image or a selection in an image, you press Command-I. Remember, Windows users, Control-I. Voila. Now we have an isolated planet Earth, and there are a lot of really nifty things we can do with this Earth at this point, but we're going to discuss that in a later tutorial. Okay. Moving on. We also have our crop tool. The shortcut for crop is the letter C. It's pretty self-explanatory. Drag, drop, right-click, and you crop. Now, the interesting thing about cropping an image is it does not shrink the image, but rather it trims the fat off of the outside of the image. It also trims the canvas. That's the difference between, you may think, why don't I just use one of my lasso or marquee tools, select the outside, and erase it? You could do that, but that would only trim the fat off the image. This actually shrinks the canvas to match the empty space you've created on the image. It's only useful if you're using something where you're trying to quickly isolate maybe a head off of somebody and use it as an avatar for instant messaging or something like that. Okay, moving on. The final tool is a series of tools: eyedropper, color sampler, ruler, note, and count. You're probably not going to use these three very often. The eyedropper tool you're probably going to use in conjunction with the brush tool. We'll get into that in the next section. But the brush tool, basically, obviously, the most predominant thing you use it for, painting over an image. However, if you wanted to paint a specific color that you could not find by clicking your color palette and choosing, say you wanted to choose a specific color, maybe this green color, then what you would do is press the B button to select your brush tool, and then you would hold down on Option. Remember, Windows users, that means you would hold down on Alt. And then all you would do is just click. And there you go. Now we have the green grass, and we can paint on our image with the exact color tone that we wanted to accomplish. Okay, now we're going to move on to the next set of tools.